This is something you haven't heard in almost a month. What did we learn yesterday?
Before we get started, I like to say it's my birthday. So if you guys are gonna sing me happy birthday, I want the fast one. The happy birthday to do that one. Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, I don't think you're gonna get the Stevie Wonder rendition in here, but well wishes and all that.
Thank you.
What's your cash app? We'll send you so.
Okay, I'm gonna put it in the chat.
What did we learn yesterday?
Fetch and promises. Well, we went over it again.
Reviewed fetch and promises. We saw how we can use await and async to deal with those pesky promises that are pending and running in the background. We used make API call, right? Which is what we needed to do to put the async keyword in so that we were able to use the await keyword. We didn't use append child. We used inner HTML instead, but append child is an alternative to inner HTML, right? It's a different way about thinking about it. Do we make our elements and then append them in, or do we just make that HTML in a string and then let the JavaScript and the document object model handle that bridge and make that together? Natasha, what's up?
I just want to say we spent 2 weeks learning it one way and you undid it all in like 2 hours. I'm looking at all my code like, where are all these dot thens and why is this? Oh my gosh. Thank you, Max.
So I don't want to undervalue .then, right? Because .then is the primary way of dealing with a promise, right? It's saying, hey, this data, we promise it will be here. What do you want us to do when it's there? Well, then I want you to go do this thing, right? Traditionally, JavaScript was known for this thing called a callback. And a callback was basically saying, hey, when this thing happens, I want you to call back this function and then go do this thing. Well, callbacks are notorious for getting indented, right? And then you're saying, well, when this thing happens, then I want this thing to happen and then go do this thing. And all of a sudden you're about 9 levels of indentation deep and you're like, I don't know what any of this code is doing. That is notorious for being called callback hell, because you are in 7 circles of hell, or what is it, 9 circles? Whatever it is, you're in the Dante's Inferno, right? You're going deeper and deeper in your code, and it can be easy to get lost of how many levels deep am I? Do I have access to that data? All of that kind of stuff. So async await is not a JavaScript unique feature. Other programming languages were like, there's got to be a better way to do this syntactically, right? There's got to be a way to say, hey, it's great if you want to take advantage of this code running asynchronously, but if you just want it to run like all your other code, we should be able to do that without having to do that .then. So I don't want to underscore what Ryan taught you, because it is very possible that you'll be reading some JavaScript code and see .thens in there and be like, what the heck is this? Why do I need a .then? Why can't I just shove that in a variable? But it's kind of like you got to learn the hard way before you can really appreciate the easy way. And so you'll be seeing me using a lot of async await and kind of skirting around that promise and not having to do the .then, but it's important to be able to look at both styles and say, okay, I can tell you that both of these are using promises. One is just saying, wait for the promise to be done. The other one is saying, when the promise is done, then go do this next thing instead.
Which one do you see more often in the coding world?
I would beat one of my employees if I saw them using a .then. I cannot stand .thens. They are really, really confusing. I would say maybe in 2% of my code, I've actually needed the flexibility of a .then because I need that asynchronous power. I'm doing a task that takes so long to do, and I have to do several tasks at the same time that I need that extra oomph to say, actually go run these things, and then when all of them are done, go do this next section.
But don't you ever get caught up with like, I told it to go do this thing and it hasn't been back yet? Like,
That's exactly when you need the .thens. Yes.
yeah.
The most of the time I'm using .then, it's actually for a database query. Or most of the time I'm using promises, I should say. Well, our database at work is so performant that you're talking about a couple hundred milliseconds for a query to be run, if not less. So because of that, I like the flexibility that I could have that query run in the background, but in practice, it is okay to wait 200 milliseconds for that query to come back with our data, right? What I have run into, the latest reason I needed an actual .then at work, and I couldn't just do it with an await async, was the FDA surprisingly has a great database of all of the drugs and all of the cosmetics and all of the things that the FDA approves. That database is 14 gigabytes, not megabytes, gigabytes. And so in order to sync all of that data into our database, we couldn't just say, oh, go download that file and shove that in there for me, right? We had to break it up into, I think they break it up into like 14 different parts. And then we couldn't just wait for 14 gigs worth of data to import. We actually had to run several imports at the same time. And so that's when we needed the .then, but we couldn't just say do all 14 of them all at once, because then the server would run out of memory. So we actually had to get creative with our .thens and say, hey, once any of these first three are done, go start the next one. And then when that one is done, go start the one after that. So you do need .then sometimes. You can't just await everything, but in the vast majority of the code, especially the code that we're writing from now until the end of the cohort, we don't need to worry about that asynchronous nature beyond the fact of saying, hey, because this is returning a promise, I don't really want a promise. I just want the data. So just go ahead and wait on it.
Great explanation. Thank you.
I did not get a yeet in there, but I would love to get a yeet somewhere in my class teaching. I don't know the difference between append and append child. I think append adds it on. I think append adds it on to whatever. Append child is kind of like inner HTML. It's going to add it on to whatever document selector it is. I think regular append adds it on to the parent element of whatever thing you selected, if that makes sense. So append child is basically putting it inside the query, the document element that you selected. I think that's the difference, but don't quote me. Corwin, I'm not sure which one you were asking on, which do you prefer, but I prefer inner HTML and I prefer await async over .then. With that said, we're going to blow your socks off with React today and show you why I actually prefer to not use either inner HTML or append child. I prefer to use React, but we're going to have a couple-day learning curve to chug up to getting comfortable to React and understanding kind of the differences. So once we get our first to-do list app done, we're actually going to go back to the Owen Wilson API and we're going to rebuild Owen Wilson in React so that we can compare and contrast the two of them there. It does not matter which one you use you have to use async before your await, but if you want to use await or then, either one is fine. Or .then, it does not matter. You can intermix them, whatever is fine, and the same for append and append child. That was a question from a while ago. I don't know if I answered the right one. Anything else from yesterday? Do we have any questions? Do we have anything that we want to review?
Max, I just have a question.
Shoot.
I feel like I know like you're gonna go over React, but I feel like I'm confused a little bit. Is React that you can use in place of what we've been learning, or it goes alongside what we've been learning?
Yes. I realized that was an either or question, and I'm saying yes to both of them. So, React is still using JavaScript, right? React uses this special syntax called JSX. Why is it an X? Because it's a crossover between JavaScript and HTML. So once we start writing it, you're going to look at that React code and you're going to go, that's JavaScript, right? There's functions in it, there are parentheses, there are curly braces. I'm looking at JavaScript. And then all of a sudden you look at this return, and after the return, there's all this HTML. And you're going to be like, whoa, what devil child is this that we just had a crossover between our JavaScript and our HTML? What React allows you to do is intermix them. It allows you to make this thing called a component, which you can kind of think like a page, but inside that component, we can have our JavaScript functions and our HTML. And what's kind of cool is that we can update this data, right, from an API call or from something else. And all of a sudden, our HTML is just going to magically update. And so that's what we're getting into. So React is not necessarily going to replace, well, that's why I said yes to kind of both of your questions. React is not going to replace the knowledge that you learn, because you're still going to use all that HTML and all of that JavaScript inside of your React. But when you start a new project, oftentimes you have to decide, hey, is this just a basic website that I'm creating for someone that doesn't have a lot of interactivity or a lot of data in it? So because of that, I would just do that with vanilla JavaScript if I needed it and regular HTML. Or is what I'm building a web app? Are users interacting with this? Are there API calls? Is there a database behind it? Am I saving the user's information? Am I signing in? Once you start crossing that threshold, you start to realize that React is a much easier way of building it than just using vanilla JavaScript. 100% of what you can build in React, you can build in regular JavaScript. Why? Because React is just a JavaScript framework. It is built all on top of JavaScript, and it actually compiles down to regular JavaScript. So when we're writing our React, what ends up happening is the server that we're running is converting that into vanilla HTML that the browser knows how to execute. So even though we're writing this in this hybrid JSX syntax, even though we know we're working with React, and even though we're using React features that are built in kind of under the hood for us, React is actually running in the browser as vanilla JavaScript. So yes, it kind of replaces it in that you can say, hey, at some point, I'm going to take that leap of faith and I'm going to start converting my capstone from my vanilla HTML and JavaScript over into React. But that's not a decision that you need to make this week or next week. And in fact, while we strongly encourage you to do that, because there are things like reusable code snippets with components and routing and a couple other features, we don't actually require your capstone to be in React. However, you're going to reach a certain point 2 weeks, 3 weeks into React where you're going, all right, this is all really cool. I can see how I would want to use this in my capstone. And we'll dive into throughout the next 3 weeks how to convert vanilla HTML and JavaScript into React data. React exists. So Natasha had a question. Why does React exist if it overlaps with so many features of JavaScript and HTML? why does Bootstrap exist if you can do everything in CSS? And I don't mean that sarcastically, for the same reason, right? Frameworks are there to say, hey, some other really smart people thought of a better way to write JavaScript. And they built a ton of features and functionality out for us. And we don't have to understand how it works. We don't understand every piece of our car when we drive it, but we drive that car because it's easier to drive than it is to maintain an engine or build an engine from scratch, right? The same goes for React. We don't need to know how everything works under the hood, but we do need to be able to read the documentation and understand the concepts. And once we do, we find that apps are actually much easier to build and maintain than if we just did it in vanilla HTML and JavaScript. So there are, if I'm building a website for someone and there's no user interactivity beyond maybe a contact form, if it's just, hey, I've got this business, here are my hours, I want a map to show up, I'm going to go build that in vanilla HTML, or actually more likely WordPress, but I get off the path. But if they come to me and they go, oh, I want my users to be able to respond to comments or search different posts or save information in a database, I'm reaching for React right out of the gate. React is in a crowded field. Angular and Vue, VUE, are two other very popular frameworks. We happen to teach React because it is the biggest in terms of market share, and we find that the most job postings are looking for React. However, modern Angular code or Vue.js code are two alternatives to React that accomplish the same thing. They have a similar feature set. They're designed to make building web applications a little bit easier, more interactive. And there is nothing wrong with those two as an alternative. You guys may have heard of jQuery, literally the letter J and then Query. jQuery was a JavaScript framework similar to React and Angular and Bootstrap. I'm sorry, similar to Angular, Vue, and React, not Bootstrap. Bootstrap is a CSS framework. jQuery, turns out there are a bunch of features that we use today, like get element by ID and document get element by query selector and a couple other things that surprisingly were not built into JavaScript. So jQuery built all of these functions, and everyone, when they started writing a JavaScript file, just like we reach for Bootstrap, they would reach for jQuery, and it would be unheard of to build a website without jQuery. Well, it turns out it only took a decade or two, but the people, the powers that be who maintain JavaScript, look at jQuery and said, no, some pretty good ideas in there. We should build them right into the language. And now almost all of the features of jQuery, or at least the most popular ones, are built right into JavaScript. So we don't use jQuery anymore. You can find code that uses it. Many websites still use it, but it would be rare to find a new project that is using jQuery, even though it's actively maintained. What we are now getting into is, hey, making a lot of API calls, we're updating a lot of data to display it on the page. We find that we've got components that we want to be able to reuse in an HTML. We aren't following don't repeat yourself or copying and pasting that code a bunch of times. And we've got a bunch of JavaScript interactivity that we would like to tie in right into that component. And so React, just like Vue and Angular, solve a lot of those problems by making it easier for us to write code to do all of that.
Whoa. So it has like a bootstrap kind of a situation going where you can there's like a directory of things that you're looking for, boilerplate situations.
It's the same in that they're both frameworks. They both make it easier, but Bootstrap, because it is a CSS framework, is naturally more visual, right?
Yeah.
It's much easier to say, I'm looking at this list component in the Bootstrap website or documentation, and if I want to use that, I just paste that in here, and it's a very clear link to say, because I'm using this class, Bootstrap defined that class for us, that's what we're going to use. React is a little bit more technical isn't the word that I'm looking for, but it's a little bit more in the weeds, not in a bad way though. It is a little bit more, hey, I'm leaning into this and I want an easier way to write this code. So in Bootstrap, a lot of that CSS code is already done for you. In React, it's less about the code already being done for you and more about being able to write more efficient code so you don't necessarily have to do things manually.
Thank you.
Okay. npm.js. NPM stands for Node Package Manager. Node Package Manager is like, well, exactly what it sounds like. What do you think a package manager is? A package is kind of like a plugin, right? It's an extension. It's some pre-written code. And we use NPM to be able to install those packages into our own projects. So React is integrated directly in with Node Package Manager. That means that when we want some functionality that someone else has already written for us, we can run this command called npm install and the name of the package and be able to pull that right into our React code. We will also be using npm Node Package Manager when we get to the first letter, Node. So we'll be writing a Node server. We'll be using a server-side framework called Express. We'll be using a database package called SQLize and a database called Postgres, which is PG and NPM. Don't worry about that too much right now, but we will be getting exposure to NPM, which is basically the ability to install other packages, other pre-written JavaScript into our own code. npm.js uses package.json and the node modules folder, both of which that we'll be seeing in React. Okay, any other questions that were in the chat that I missed? You don't need to install npm automatically gets installed when you install Node. We will be seeing, though, how we can create a new project for React in a second. Okay, before we get into any of that exciting stuff, there are some people that did not get a chance to present their capstones from yesterday. You still have the opportunity to schedule a one-on-one with me if you would not like to present in front of the class. However, I am not encouraging you to use that option because it's very important to be able to present. It's a lot less scary to present to all of your fellow students than it is to present at graduation, open up to the public, right? So getting that practice now, super, super important. With all of that said, is there anyone who would like to present their capstone now as opposed to scheduling a one-on-one with me? Taylor, go for it. And anyone else, go ahead and raise your hands, and I'll just go down the line.
Alrighty. Green. Alrighty, everybody able to see everything fine?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
And there is a lot to see.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about kind of slimming it down a little bit earlier, but I can get a bit farther before I start backtracking on that. But so just to refresh, I'm doing a character sheet for Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition to help people either just play the game easier or learn the game easier. Trying to make it both useful for both of them because I've both been playing for a while and I know how hard it was for me to learn. So on this current page that we're looking at is going to be where all of the data that you enter in when you create a character is going to be inputted for your main character stats. All of the stuff in the character information box will all be generated from that information, most likely through JavaScript. All of these numbers will be connected in the background and adjusting as you adjust your few stats that you make changes to every time you level up. And I'm probably just gonna stick with a fighter class just because it's a lot easier to work with that. But I have a few of these buttons in the nav bar working. I've started on the bag that you keep all of your stuff in, using drop downs to select items through the API that will generate stats that go along with those items next to them, organized for different types of items and currencies, just to keep things easy to read and keep track of. I started working on the combat tab, which is just going to have whatever equipped items you have already preloaded in based off of what you select on the main character page. And it'll pretty much just tell you what you need to roll to your dice and what dice you need to roll to make all of that move along a lot faster. And then at the bottom is going to be a spells tracker and definitions thing, because there's a lot to keep track with that. And that's pretty much all I've gotten done with the HTML and CSS, but I've also kind of taken it upon myself to dive into the API and kind of learn a bit more about that and practice exploring that so I can figure how I'm going to plug all of this in. And actually, Max, I have a million questions. So possibly because of the database you said it was using, just differences I'm noticing, because when you first expand it, this is all of the parsed data that it gives me, which is just additional attachments to add to the URL to explore different parts of the API. But I've been having a lot of fun exploring all of that. And this is pretty much what I've gotten done so far.
Awesome. Definitely schedule a one-on-one with me if you haven't already. I think I saw you on my calendar, but I'm not sure. Love seeing that you are starting to explore the API. You're like making that connection, right? Between I've got a huge interface and I got all of this data. Like, how do I tie those two together? And React is also going to help with that as well, of bridging the gap between those two. But love seeing the interface coming together, right? I'm personally not a D&D fan, but I can still look at your interface and see everything, right? And like maybe not understand it, but I get the concept, right? Like I get the data, the interface, how to use it, all of that kind of stuff. So really, really awesome work. Keep it up. And looking forward to diving into the API with you and kind of integrating that into the data. There will be a lot of on events, on chains, on clicks, on whatever. And it will be fun to start diving into those.
Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome work. Kenny, go for it.
Good evening, everybody. Give me 1 sec, share my screen.
Take your time.
Can everybody see the screen?
Yes, you're good.
Okay. So yeah, for my capstone project, I basically want to build like a website, basically to kind of help plan the trip, like some type of like itinerary planner. It's kind of like similar to Expedia or Airbnb or other places that you use. This is kind of like the layout. Still trying to work on it some more. I know I was gone for a couple weeks, so that kind of set me back. But I was able to make a login page over here and the sign up page. In the search bar, if you actually type in a location, it can actually auto complete the location for you. So you click on that. I have an explore map as well over here. I kind of explore. Right now, there's some things I need to do to kind of add more user, what's the word for it? What do you say? User interactivity, I guess. So they should do this more. But yeah, I'm thinking about even adding more filtering options, so like flights, hotels, and dates down here as well. So I just kind of need to focus on that more.
Awesome. What are your next steps?
My next steps now is basically just, I'm thinking about adding more stuff down here for filtering. As I mentioned, with the flights, hotels, and also probably start looking for other places like maybe because I already have a Google API key, so I might go look into the developer platform and see if there's a way I can just read the documentation and do some fun stuff for that. See if I can make it so if, let's say, if you type in a hotel or a place, it will show up. Or let's say you type in pizza, it'll show you all the local pizza spot. Oh, I guess I already did that. Sorry. Yeah, I did. Yeah, I've been gone for a couple weeks. There's no computer, so like, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so I would say good progress. I think you're like 90% of the way where you need to be for the check-in, right? So I would say think about maybe adding one more page in terms of or modifying the map page to say when they type that in, when they hit enter, what does it look like? Is it the map on the right and the businesses on the left? Is it a different page for flight results than it is for business results? We're almost there, right? And it's a little bit easier because we've gone on sites like Google Flights or Expedia or whatever, but maybe just one more page thinking about what the results looked like. And it doesn't have to be fully operational at this point, right? We can use some dummy data and work our way up to making those API calls and getting the information in there. But I think you're almost at that point where you've got all the main pages and structure built out. So I would say just keep it up, think about that page, and you'll be in great shape.
All right, thank you. Yeah, this next couple of weeks gonna just be in grind mode, so there's a possibility.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I said, don't stress yourself out. The whole capstone doesn't need to be done next week or in 2 weeks, right? And it doesn't have to be using real data. So don't think that you're cheating when you're, building out the HTML and just putting in a couple examples. Sometimes getting the interface out of the way makes the interactivity much easier to build out. Rain, what's up?
Just a quick question for Kenny. For your users to be able to pinpoint a location, did you have to use the geocode and JavaScript? Excuse me.
Are you referring to like oh, I'm not sharing my screen anymore. You talking about my explore map section, or are you talking about the search bar where you type in?
Yeah, so your search bar where a person can type in an address.
Mhm.
Do you have to use the geocode, like in order to include that and then have it connect to the map by any chance? Because
So
I had an issue.
I believe the way it works
I got
is
it.
that's the autocomplete API. That autocomplete API, when a person picks one of the items in it, that item, when they pick it, has the geolocated latitude and longitude built into the results of the autocomplete.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, when I did the script, yeah, kind of go through and look at. I didn't really yeah, I just made like a autocomplete function. I just used their API, and they had like a specific thing. I forgot exactly what I did. I have to show you my source code, but yeah,
I'll Slack you. Thank
yeah,
you,
just let me
Matt.
know.
Thank you, Kenny.
Yeah, so basically Kenny hasn't gotten into the geocoding yet, but when you actually like click one of the autocomplete items, the geo-encoded location should be inside the data that's coming back from like the on select or the on click or something like that. But if you're having issues with geolocation, definitely feel free to schedule a one-on-one with me. I am not an expert in mapping, but I have done a fair amount of that. There are also NPM packages that are kind of cool where you can like give it a zip code and it will give you a rough latitude and longitude of what you're looking for. It won't go down quite to the address level, but I have worked with Google's geolocation service before, and I know Mapbox works in a similar way. So feel free to hit me up for a one-on-one for that, and I can help you out.
Thank you.
Does anyone else want to go for their capstone presentation? Let me take that back. Would anyone else like to present to the students? No, I used the word like again. I'm trying to say, would anyone else like to get this out of the way? Okay.
I think everyone went already.
Or has scheduled. There are a couple people who haven't went, but If you have not gone, please make sure to schedule a one-on-one with me. If not, I'm going to come hunt you down tomorrow and make sure that you have scheduled with me if you did not present in front of the students. Okay. All right, let's dive into React. So we're going to start off a little differently. We're going to head to our My Code. We're going to head to our week 13 folder. And I'm going to make my day 2 folder in here like always. But instead of going right into VS Code, well, actually, you know what? We can go into VS Code. I'm going to go into VS Code. And instead of reaching for my index.html and my script.js and all of the stuff that we always usually do, we are going to break it up a little bit. We are going to start a React project by going into the terminal and going down to new terminal. That's going to pop up the terminal that we've seen before. And we've run some node scripts in here, and we know that there are some basic terminal commands, right? pwd. If I hit enter on that, it prints the working directory. pwd, print working directory. That is basically telling us what folder we are in our terminal. Because whenever we run a command in the terminal, we're always running that in a specific folder. So it's very easy to get lost in the terminal. It's very easy to forget what working directory or folder we're in. So pwd, we can run that at any time and know where we're at. So I'm in my day 2 folder. If you are not in your day 2 folder, pause, go make sure that you've opened the day 2 folder in your VS Code and not week 13, not some other place. Make sure that you are in day 2 in your terminal. Now React has to make a whole bunch of different files for us. So when we run this command, React is actually going to make a new folder for us. And that folder is going to be our project name. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in a command npx, not M for manager, X for execute, node package executor, npx. And npx takes a couple different pieces of information. The command that we want npx to execute is create React app. We're going to put dashes between them. Why isn't it camel case? Because we camel case everything in JavaScript. Great freaking question. I don't know. It's dashes, not camel casing. It needs one other piece of information. It needs to know the name of our project. So we are going to call our project to do. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter there. And this is going to take a hot minute to run. When you hit enter, did it give you something that says, would you like to install? Okay, my screen doesn't show it, but go ahead and hit the Y key on your keyboard, and you might have to hit enter after Y. And after it says, do you want to install, and you hit Y and possibly enter, cannot use your mouse, you cannot click on it, have to use the Y key on your keyboard and enter. It is going to do a whole bunch of commands down here about installing 235 packages. That sounds like a lot. It's not. Jen, to get your terminal to show up, there are 2 ways of doing it that I know of. You can either go to terminal up at the very top and down to new terminal, or you can use the keyboard shortcut, which I believe is control and the tilde key underneath escape, and that will also pop open your terminal for you. And then the command that we're running is npx create -react -app with a space that says to do after it. So Quota, what's up?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, I'll come to you next. Allie. So Quota, what's up?
I forgot to put a space. So do I go back and put the npx?
Yeah, so you can hit Control C, which will always kind of cancel everything out. And then you can do your npx space create dash react dash app space to do and hit enter, and you should be back on track.
Thank you.
Allie, what's up?
Okay, yeah, so I was just wondering, because what I did for my day 2 folder was I did like a duplicate of day 1. Should I have done that or should I go back?
Go back. Day 2 is going to be completely empty. We're not doing anything from day 1 in our day 2.
Okay.
Or you can just delete the files that are in the day 2 folder. That works too. It doesn't have to be a new folder, but there shouldn't be anything in day 2 before you run that npx command. Yep. So Shannon, only 2 things I've done in the terminal other than opening it. We ran this command npx create react app to do. And that is going to say, do you want to install the command create react app? And we're going to hit the Y key and maybe enter. And that is going to create our React app for us. You'll notice that there's this folder to do. It might take a minute or 2. There's a lot of stuff to download. The first time is always the slowest. So what we should have after we run that command and hit Y enter, it should have made all of these files for us. If you do not see these files in the to-do folder that it made for us, go ahead and raise your hand. Yes, the other way to open the terminal, you can right click and hit open an integrated terminal, or control tilde, or go up to terminal at the top and down to new terminal. Jen, what's up?
I got everything done and it's not downloading anything anymore and no folders. It just has the to do.
Share screen.
Oh, no, it's in the to do. Never mind. I lied.
Okay,
But I
bye.
also have a VS code. Yeah. It's in
Max.
the to-do. Oh, sorry. Sorry.
You're good. Rain, what's up?
Just give me a second. I had an update in VS Code. So
Okay.
I'm catching up.
Give just one more minute here because apparently there's a VS Code update and NPM can take a minute to get all of React downloaded and installed and all of that stuff.
Wait, so.
So Quota, I would actually pay for your camera to be on and just see you.
Let's see. My VS Code after the things installed, is it supposed to say happy hacking? Was that
It is. If you see happy hacking, just in your files over on the left side of VS Code, pop open this to do folder and you'll see everything in there.
Oh, cool.
Give everyone one more minute because it seems like we are not in callback hell, we are in update hell.
Max, was that the only one who had an update? If so, like you can still continue. I don't
No, it's fine. There are a couple other people that had to
Oh.
update GSH or NPM or other stuff. So
Okay.
you are not alone.
Okay.
Amberlynn, Japanese beetles in the garden? Am I missing a reference?
No, those little beetles that, I don't know, they're attacking my garden. They just came out, they were attacking the neighbor's garden and everything, and nothing is working. So I was wondering if you had a trick for yours, like, I don't know.
I have
Since you're
not.
waiting.
My parents, I've got potato vine that they're eating through right now. I think
Oh.
they're eating through. And
Oh.
so I'm gonna try like Dawn dish soap and just water and spray it on there because that sometimes helps, but I have to look up some more home remedies for it.
I tried that, mixed with vinegar and the Dawn dish soap today. It just made them angry and then they attacked it.
Great.
Yeah.
Baking soda and dish soap.
I'll try that.
Natasha, go ahead and share your screen. Let's take a look at and see. Okay, so let me request remote. Have you run your? Okay, so hold on. Where?
I have the terminal kind of an app situation. So I opened it and I did that and I got that going, but then I had to create the folder. And when I went all the way back to VS Code, the integrated terminal did not show the to-do list.
Okay, so we're gonna delete this. We aren't supposed to duplicate day 1. Day 2 is supposed to be completely empty. So I'm gonna delete these.
Oh, that's why. Okay.
Then in VS Code, we're gonna close out of this. And in down here in our week 13 day 2, we're gonna do an npx create React app, and it is called to do. And when we hit enter on that, it is going to go download a bunch of stuff for us. And it's normal for this to take a hot minute.
But I got through that on the terminal and it said happy hacking.
So when you did it in the terminal, you did it in your main user folder. You weren't in week 13 day 2. So because you didn't CD to the right spot, where it actually created it was up here, not in your desktop, not in your my code, not in any of that stuff. So whenever we run a command in the terminal, we want to make sure where we are where we expect we are. So if you run the pwd command, that's always going to print out the file path of where you're working. So now that because we're in that right file path, you'll notice that your to-do is in the right spot now.
Thank you, sir.
No problem. Anyone else need help? I know this is always a painful step to get everyone working. Trust me, this is the worst part of tonight.
I feel like if you do a live share, I can definitely get to where I need to be. I was trying to copy what you had on the screen, but your screen went away. So
sorry, yeah. The only command I've run is the one that I pasted into Slack, is that npx create React app to do.
And Slack, okay.
I'm sorry, in Zoom chat. I will also paste it in Slack.
Let me go back.
I just put it in Slack as well to reference that. And I will start a live share. As well. Yes.
I put in what you put in, and I was asking, let's see, it says okay to proceed.
Yep, hit Y and enter.
Y and enter.
And then it's going to take a minute and install a bunch of different stuff. And then you should see your to-do folder over here on the left.
I do. Thank you.
No problem. All right, let's keep going here. So first place I like to start is package.json, because the package.json is really containing all of the information that Node needs to be able to run this project. So in here, we've got our name to do. The version number, it's just started out as version 0.1. Private, you don't need to really worry about. That's just saying, hey, this isn't a public project that shouldn't be out on the internet. And then down here, there are some dependencies. This is everything that NPM installed for us so that we can use React. The only really important one here so far is React. There are a couple other things that it installed for us that React uses under the hood. We don't need to really worry about them, but we can see stuff like the version information in here. So we're using React 18.2. Not really a big deal, just showing you kind of how this works under the hood, what Create React app did for us. There are also these scripts down here. What Nathan will do when he comes back is show you how to use this build command, how to basically tell your project to build itself together so that it can be deployed out on the internet. But the command that we really care about is this start command. JSX and React files are not like HTML or regular JavaScript files where we can just double click on them and have them show in the browser. We actually need React to be running a local server, basically a local copy that we can hit. So this is, if you take only one thing from tonight and only one thing at all, Go Live does not work with React. I'll come off mute and repeat that back to me, and that would make me happy. I'm just kidding. Go Live does not work with React. We cannot just double click on our index.html and have it pop open in the browser. In order for us to be able to see our React code, we need to go back down to the terminal. And in the terminal, we are going to pwd enter, and we are in the day 2 folder. We don't want to be in the day 2 folder. We actually want to be inside this folder called to do. So what am I going to do? I'm going to type in cd space, and I'm going to move this up because I know my screen gets cut off on some of your screens. I'm going to cd space and type in the word to do. And when I hit enter on that, it doesn't look like anything happened. But because I'm using OMI I can see the name of the folder that I'm in. And if I do a pwd enter, I can now see that I'm in my to-do folder inside day 2, inside week 13, inside my code that's on my desktop. Now, to get our project running, we are going to npm node package manager, not npx for execute, npm for node package manager. And we're going to type in the word start. And when I go ahead and hit that enter button, it's going to take a minute. And what should pop up, you may have to hunt it down on another monitor, is this lovely spinning React logo. Does anyone not have a spinning atom on their screen?
We just have to press OK for the access. The access.
Yeah, if it prompts you for desktop access, you can go ahead and hit OK on that.
Mine's saying, would you like to run the app on another port instead? So I just click yes.
What else do you have running on 3000?
I don't
yeah,
know.
that's fine. For tonight's class, you can go ahead and hit Y. That's not a big deal. I do want to know what else you're running on 3000, but that's the question for another day.
Yeah, I was like, what the hell?
Amberlynn, what's up?
Mine says no such file exists.
Okay, that probably means your CD did not work. Go ahead and share your screen and let's take a look. Okay, so you CD'd to do without a space. But then you got it working eventually. I don't, hold on. Now I'm confused. Let me request remote.
Okay.
I think you're in to do. To confirm that, I'm going to do a PWD. And let me move this over just so we can see everything. I think we can actually get this output out of here. There we go. Okay. So you're in the to-do folder. So you're in the right spot there. So all we need is an npm start. And you are... What do y'all have running on 3000 that I don't know about? Okay. If you get this screen, if anyone else is held up here, go ahead and hit the Y key. And then OK for Google Chrome access.
Okay.
And now you should have it open.
Yes. It's on my other screen.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Seriously, I want to know what y'all's secret project is. Shannon, do you still need help? Rain, and then Natasha, and then Shannon, if you need help, raise your hand. Oh, I wonder if I'm on your port 3000. It's my copy of the code that's blocking y'all's 3000 port. I'm gonna go ahead and stop that, so that won't be a problem for you. Sorry. Plosh, I swear I figured that out before you typed out that message. Rain, did you need help, or were you raising your hand for another reason?
I feel like it's figured out now, but maybe you should just take a quick little look, you know what I
Yep.
mean?
Just
Okay. Hold on a second. Here. I'm sharing. Okay, good.
you are.
There we go.
Okay. So let me request remote. So you are only one step behind. Your day 2 folder over here has all of your to-do stuff in it. You've CD'd into the directory, so all we need here is an npm start. And okay on this. And that should pop you over to 3000 and show you. Come on, you can do it, computer. Why isn't that working? Rain, you broke it. Oh, there
Yeah.
it is. Okay, you're good to go.
I swear I just tried to thank you so much.
Yep. Natasha, go for it.
Forgot to take my hand down, but you fixed it when you did what you did. I was looking at DevOps 6 for like 3 minutes. It was crazy.
Okay. Shannon, go ahead and share your screen, and we'll use you as a good review for everyone else to see all the steps as we went. And then I'm going to come to Brandy, who looks incredibly panicked.
Oh.
Okay, my code's on the left, your code is on the right. You've got everything created. You are in the day 2 folder. So give me a remote. In day 2, I'm going to CD into my to-do folder. And to prove that that worked, I'm going to do a PWD, and it's showing me I'm now in this to-do folder that React created for us. So in here, all I need to do is our npm start and give that a hot minute. And now that it is started and we have given VS Code access to Chrome, it will show us our spinning React logo, and you're caught up and good to go. And you were on mute that whole time, so if you said anything to us, we didn't hear it. All right, everyone not panicking. We have a React logo. It does not need to be spinning, Jen. I don't know why yours isn't, but doesn't matter. I'm going to delete it in a second. Any other questions? We all have it going. I do not want to lose anyone here. I know it's frustrating having to wait for all of these things. I promise you, remember back to week 2, where you guys were struggling to create folders and learning the Mac. React, this is going to be like second nature for you guys. Creating a new project, getting it running, all of that stuff. That is a bunch of fun. You'll get used to it. All right, last call for anyone that needs help. I promise if you're stuck on step 1, I will not yell at you and I will help you through it, because this is a lot of little steps to get going in here. Okay. Next up, the most annoying part to me of React, we're going to head into this folder called SRC. That SRC stands for source, our source code. It's very common to see our code that we're writing to be inside the SRC. Max, what's the public folder? What are all these things like setup tasks? We'll get into that later. Don't worry about it. For right now, What I find the most annoying about React is it gives us the spinning React logo, and I'm like, GTFO, I want to go start writing my own code, and this spinning React logo is in the way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this file called app.js. Think about your app.js as kind of the equivalent of index.js for your React code. And yes, there is an index.js in here, but app.js is where our React code really starts going. This is where we get to start writing React. And this is kind of funky for the first time, right? Because we see these imports and we're like, all right, kind of get what's going on there. And I see a function app and I'm like, okay, cool. This is just JavaScript, right? I've got a return in here, and what in the devil's crossover name? I've got some HTML going on in here. This is a little funky, right? We've got JavaScript and our HTML, and somehow all of this is happening in the browser. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to delete out this entire header component. We are going to leave the div class name app. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that. And I am also going to go to my app.css file. And there's a bunch of stuff in here with the app logo and the header color and all of this stuff. And I'm like, GTFO, I delete everything in app.css. I don't delete app.css, the file. I just delete the contents inside app.css. I am going to go ahead and close out of my app.css for now. I'm going to head back to my app.js, and I'm going to put a little h1 in that says, welcome to React. I save, I come over, and I've got a nice welcome to React in my browser.
Why does the Emmet doesn't work on this?
Emmet does not work because Emmet does not support JSX syntax out of the box. You can install an Emmet JSX extension that will work. It's not hugely supported, but you can install that, and you should get your Emmet functionality back.
Thank you. Is it going to be in the same thing extensions?
It should be, but I don't actually use Emmet in JSX, so I cannot give you a definitive answer on that. Taylor, on yours, head back over to the browser, refresh manually. Does a refresh manually fix it? Cool. You don't normally have to refresh, but every now and then you will. That's okay. You can keep your imports. You will notice that React is trying to help us out down here, right? So it says warning, right? And it's yellow, not red. So we're not panicking, but it's saying warning. Logo is defined but never used. What does that mean? It's saying we imported the logo up here, but we're not using it anywhere in our code. So it's just telling us it's safe to delete that app. It's not really going to cause any issues, but they don't want us having some old code in there. So I delete that out, and now you'll notice down in my terminal, I've got compiled successfully with no warnings by just deleting that first import. Sequoto, what's up?
Hold up, I think I'm fixing it before I say something. Let me try.
Okay.
It.
Could you elaborate, Brandy, on orange?
Well, they look orange to me. I've got like, I deleted everything out of app.css.
Are you seeing welcome to React in your browser?
Yeah.
Then don't worry about it being orange.
Okay.
I fixed it.
Okay.
Like, is it like all orange? Like the text inside the file is orange?
No, like, on the left-hand side where it shows the list of like under SRC, app.css and app.js are both like orange, like something is
That's fine.
wrong. And next
It's
to
not that
SRC is
something's
a dot.
wrong. It's just letting you know that that file has been modified. So
Oh,
them being
okay.
orange is totally normal.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Jen, what's up?
In the app.js, can I get rid of the import logo? I missed
Yes.
that. Okay.
Max.
Yep.
I did everything you told us to do.
Yep.
However, when I go live. Oh, wait, hold on a second. You can't do it.
And not go live and react.
You can't do it with React. Never mind.
Do it, girl.
NPM start. And when you do an NPM start, it will take you to localhost 3000 or 3001. If you accidentally close out of this, you can just open a new tab and go to this URL, or you can hit Control-C in your terminal to stop the server and do your NPM start again, and that will fire it back up on your 3000 for you.
I know, and I repeated what he said. I just slapped my hand. Okay, thank you, Max.
No problem. Sequoia, what's up?
I just had a question. I'm doing notes. So you said the app.js was compared to what
Like
document
the
that was on?
index.js, like index.html.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay. So far, we don't really see any benefit of React, right? We have seen some JavaScript and some HTML, and all we've learned so far is that this is just a harder project to get started. Don't worry, it's worth it. What we are going to do is, I got feedback from you guys when we were learning JavaScript that these JavaScript concepts are kind of hard to learn in a vacuum, right? We're learning the concepts, we're learning the syntax, but unless we can really see those concepts in a project, they're kind of hard to understand why we would want to use them, right? Well, historically, the way I've taught React is giving you 12 pages of documentation to read, and we go through that documentation together. That's really boring. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a concept, then we're going to read the documentation on the concept, then we're going to go back to our code and make sure we understand the code that's using the concept. Sound good? Okay. So one of the cool things about our JSX syntax, literally JS and the letter X, is that we can intermix some JavaScript right into our HTML. So let's see how that works. Anything before this return is JavaScript land. So I'm going to hit enter here, and I'm going to say I'm going to make a const called cars. And my const is just going to be a regular array. And inside that array, I'm going to put Toyota, Tesla, and Honda. Basic array, basic JavaScript, we've seen that. Okay, we're good to go. Now we know that there are multiple ways of looping over an array in JavaScript. So what I would like to do is I'm going to make an unordered list. And in that unordered list, I want something like this to show up. So I've got my Toyota, my Tesla, and my Honda. So if I take a look at what that looks like, I've got my 3 bullet points. I'm like, okay, that's what I would expect, right? A UL, an LI, and Toyota, Tesla, Honda. Ignore what's in your terminal for now. It's fine. Well, I would like it to use this cars array to generate out these list items. So what I'm going to do is similar to a template literal, where we use that $ curly brace syntax. In JSX, it's exactly the same, except we don't need the $. So in here, I'm just going to do a curly brace. Jen, I'll come to you in a second. And inside that curly brace is saying, hold up, this is not just HTML anymore. I want to be able to write some JavaScript right inside of my HTML. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say cars.map. What is .map? Map is just a loop that's going over each one of my cars. That is giving me access to each individual car. And what would I like to do? I would like to return a list item. Well, that's kind of funky because I was in HTML here, and then I switched over to JavaScript by using this curly brace. Well, now, because I'm returning an item, I can switch back over to HTML. So now I'm in HTML mode. What do I want to show up in that list item? I want more JavaScript to show up. What JavaScript would I like to show up? I would like the car to show up. Now I can delete out these list items down here, and you'll notice I've got my Toyota, my Tesla, and my Honda. And I can come in and modify my array and add in a new item and just save, and boom, just like that, I've got a new bullet point. Jen, do you still have a question?
I have a question.
Shoot.
So on line 10, the word, well, even on line 9, the word car is singular because it comes from the cars list.
Yes, we are looping over the list of cars. And while we loop over it, we are mapping over each individual car.
Okay.
And then we are using that individual car, because if we used all of the cars, we would get Toyota, Honda, Ford on every single bullet point. So we only want that individual car to show up.
So we can use that same concept with other things that have S at the end of it, like.
Yes, the naming convention when you are looping over something should be singular versus plural.
Nice.
We could call that item. And if we're consistent in calling it item, it would do the exact same thing over here. But I'm looking at this, I'm like, I don't know what item is. I got to go figure out what this map is going over to understand what this item is. So it is better to, in my coding convention, and a lot of people's coding convention, to use a singular plural method.
Did not know that. Thank you.
Yep. All right, we have any questions so far?
Max, I do. I'm sorry if I missed this. I was just trying to fix my code. Why did we do the .mat next to the cars?
Because I wanted a bullet point, a list item, to show up for every car that is in my array. So .map is just like a for loop, in that it's going to loop over all of the items. But what's kind of cool about React is that when we map over something, whenever we return something from that map function, that is what is going to show up in our HTML.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we've got list items and we've seen these curly braces. We can do more stuff with these curly braces. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to make some p tag. And I'm going to say the sum of 1 plus 9 is, and I can just do my curly braces and put 1 plus 9. And what do I get? The sum of 1 plus 9 is 10. Okay, that's cool because that's just JavaScript, right? We can add two numbers together. This is what we would expect. We could even use a function to do something. So I could say something like let's say 9 plus 5 added together is, and I can say add two nums. And I'm going to add two nums, 9 and 5. Well, the terminal and my browser is going to be like, what the heck is add two nums? That's not defined anywhere. Well, we can define that right outside of our return because we're in vanilla JavaScript up here. So I can write in vanilla JavaScript, add two nums is going to take num1 and num2. And what does that do? It returns num1 plus num2. So now 9 plus 5 added together is 14.
Wait, so why I did the first one? It's on mine. It's showing 1 plus 9 is 1.
Do you have 1 plus 9 in curly braces?
Yes.
Share your screen.
Share.
Yep.
Hold on. I was like, what the hell?
Let me see it in your browser.
Oh, 1 second.
Refresh.
Oh,
I found you're missing
oh
0.
man, I was confused with the hell out of me. That's okay. All right.
All right, everyone good so far? Okay. So this is JSX. And in the documentation of React, how did I get to this? I am going to do a search for React. First thing that comes up is a site called react.dev. And this documentation is actually quite new. This is only about a month or two old, this documentation site. So if you go to Learn React, they're going to go over all of these different concepts that we are going over. They're actually going to start with a tutorial for tic-tac-toe. I think that's a little involved. I like to start with our to-do app instead. But if you come over here and look at this writing markup with JSX, they're going to give you a breakdown of an explanation of this, right? They're telling you, hey, anything inside that return is what is going to show up as your HTML. One thing about React that is a little different is that it does not use something called class equals. It actually uses something called class name. Why is that? That's because class in JavaScript is actually a reserved word. It's kind of a word that's built into JavaScript itself that freaks the code out when you use just class in your JavaScript code. So instead, if we want to apply a style, what we need to do is add in something that says class name. And we're going to say class name equals first sum. Notice that you need that capital N here. That capital N name is going to tell the React code, hey, I actually want to put a CSS class on that. Well, how do we do that? If we go to our app.css, I can just use my period like I would normally do and say something like first sum is going to have a color of red. And now I've turned my sum red. So we use classes just like we do in regular HTML. The only difference is we use class name instead of class. And you can see the documentation, if we keep on reading here, is going to go into displaying data. And here it's using something .user.name. Well, we got fancy. We did it with cars instead. And we mapped over that. We can even use that data in properties of our HTML, but we're going to get to that in a second.
Yeah, that's not working for me.
Where
Oh.
did,
Make sure you still have your import for app.css at the top of the file. Make sure that you've saved both files. Make sure you've refreshed in your browser. And if it's still not working, whoever just said it isn't, raise your hand.
where did you add that first sum? I mean,
The-
not the first time. I got the class name, that second one where you went to the empty file and
Oh, this is app.css.
That was me that said it's still not working. Oh.
Okay, share your screen.
Mm. Thank you, class name for
That class name needs to be inside the p tag. You've got a closing arrow there, delete and hit space. And then you should be good to go.
Wow. Thank you.
No problem. Anyone else need help? Okay, so next we have this cool thing called components. Components solve the problem of having to repeat our code over and over again. So I'm going to go ahead and close out of my app.css because we're done playing around with that for now. And I am going to make a new component. So I'm going to come down in my app.js file. I need to be outside of my function app. And outside of that function, I'm roughly on line 24. I am going to make a new component. And that component, I'm going to call it car shower. I don't know, that's a terrible name. I haven't thought this through. And inside car shower, I'm going to make a new function. Now you will notice I've capitalized the C in car shower. Whenever we make a new component, that component, which just looks like a function to us, needs to be capitalized. Well, Max, is it a function or is it a component? Yes, it is both a functional component. There are actually other ways of making a component other than a function. However, functional components, basically making a component by making a function, is the de facto way of making components in React. Yeah, car viewer would be a better name, but I'm already too far down this path range, so I'm just going to stick with it. Okay, inside car shower, I can have different information show up. So I'm going to return some div. And inside that div, I'm going to make, I don't know, a span show up with the make. And I'm going to throw a BR tag in there. And I'm going to make a span show up with the model. And we've already seen how we can attach a class to the make and model. But what's kind of different, another different thing about React, is we can't just do style and start writing out font weight bold. Look at what happens. Don't follow me on this. Look at what happens. I see style prop value must be an object down in my terminal. Well, what's different is we have to use objects for our styling if we're doing inline styling. So the way that we do that properly, now you can follow me, is we say style and we make it an object. Whoa, whoa, whoa. An object's one curly brace. What are you doing with two curly braces there? The first curly brace is saying heads up, some JavaScript's heading your way. What's the second one doing? That's what's actually creating the object. So when we use an object, because we're in JavaScript land, we're not going to use dashes. We're actually going to camel case it out. And I'm going to make my font weight bold for both of those. So our CSS, two ways that is different in React. One, we use class name instead of class. And if we're doing inline styles, we're going to do it with objects that are camel cased instead of our regular CSS that we're used to. Okay. Now I'm coming over here and like, where's my make and my model? Nothing's showing up. Well, we made this a function. What do we know about functions? Functions don't run, functions don't execute unless we call them. So when we call a function, we're used to doing something like car shower. Okay. But that's not in my return. Wait a second. When I am doing this, this stuff doesn't show up. This is all the stuff that makes this return work properly down here. If I put this up here, it's not going to show up where I want it to show up. Well, now we are learning some JSX magic. Where do I want that to show up? Let's just make it show up right here. Whoa. We just broke some ethical boundary here. We just went from JavaScript, which is returning some code, to calling that function, but that's never how we've called a function before, because this isn't just a function. This is a component. Because we capitalized it here, we are able to take whatever is coming out of here and just dump it right into our code here. So everything that's coming out here, we are taking it and we are sending it directly into our code up here. React is much pickier, Allie. If part of the code is broken, it will throw a tantrum until you have fixed it. It is 7 o'clock. I'm going to go on break. Be back at 7:25. And if anyone needs help, go ahead and raise your hand. I'll stick around for a minute or two.
Max, I just had a question.
Yes.
So because we capitalized car shower and it's a component, we could just like put it up there without making like const or anything like that.
Well, we made the const down here, so it's able to use it up here.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yep. Hold your horses, Palash. We'll get to that. Okay, go on break. See you guys at 7:25. All right. So where did we leave off before the break? We've got our cart shower. No, not shower. Come on, people. Cart shower. It's a brilliant name. I don't know what you have a problem with. Okay, so we've got our cart shower. And we've got this make and model thing here, right, with colons. And what we kind of want it to do is to show a make and a model for each item in our array. But we've got a problem. Our array only has makes. It doesn't have models. So oftentimes we realize we've got to change our data format up a little bit. We want it to be an array because we're keeping track of multiple things. Okay, array is fine, but we want to keep track of multiple pieces of information about each one of these items. And the way we want to reference it is not by an index. We don't want to say cars bracket 0. What we want to be able to do is store the make and the model of each one of these items. So to do that, we're going to change up our data format a little bit. We know how to do this. This is just JavaScript. Everything's fine. I'm going to come in here and say my make is Toyota and my model is RAV4. And I'm putting in curly braces. So instead of just using strings in my array, like I'm using over here, instead I'm using an object that's storing the make and the model. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to say my make is Tesla. My model is Y. I'm going to make a make of Honda and a model of CRV. And I'm going to do my last one, a make of Ford and a model of F-150. If you guys don't want to type all of that out, that's totally fine. This is a time that you can copy and paste with no consequence. Okay, so we've got our makes and our models in, and I'm looking at this and I've got an uncaught runtime error. What the hell is that? Okay, what it's saying is objects are not valid as React child. Object with keys make model found. Well, what's happening is I'm mapping over the car and it's getting the entire car showing up down here. And car at this point is now no longer a string, Toyota, Tesla, Honda, Ford. It's this whole object. And it's like, I've got no idea how to make an object show up in HTML. So to fix that, because we're in JavaScript here, and because we're just mapping over the car, I can actually come in here and console log out my car. Now, that doesn't fix the problem, but if I head over into my inspect, I can see my objects. And inside those objects, if I pop it open, I can see my Toyota RAV4. And I can see my Tesla Model Y. Okay, well, if they're just objects, we can use that object right here. Dot notation, because we're in JavaScript land, we're mapping over the car. We know car is an object that is coming from the cars array. We are looping over each car up here and giving us access to the car down here through our loop, and then using the property .make. And I can also add like a dash in here if I wanted to, and put in my car.model and get that information as well. After you get it working, go back in. Do you understand how it's working? We're learning new syntax here. So look at that syntax. Do you understand what every period is doing, what every curly brace, why we need every parenthesis? Where's the data coming from? How is it flowing? Jen, what's up? And then Kenny, I'll do a run through in just 1 minute. I want to do one more step and then I'll show you how that's flowing.
So I'm not sure if this matters or not, but my sum of 1 + 9 is 10 is not red, and my app CSS has an M after it.
The M is okay. The M means that it was modified. Check your P class. Make sure that class name is inside that P tag, that it says class name, and that whatever you put in here lines up with whatever you have in here.
Oh, because I didn't capitalize the S. Awesome. Thank you.
No problem. It's a quota.
For some reason, I'm missing like oh, never mind. I just caught my own error. Never mind.
Okay, Goggin, you're up.
So just to get this out of the way, like little confusion.
Yep.
So I don't see no index HTML. Like, I mean, like, I know you said something that we don't need that anymore, I guess. So is it like now we can just launch this as a web page? Like
There
web
is
app?
an index.html
Oh, where is that?
in the public folder.
Okay.
And what's basically happening, everyone, if you're content with the speed that we're going and you don't need to know how everything works under the hood, everyone just plug your ears. The way that this is actually flowing is the public index.html. This is the HTML file. Inside that HTML file, there is this div ID root. This index.html through Webpack and through things that are way more complicated than I even dare to try and understand. This index.html is linked to this index.js. This index.js is what is pulling in our app.js file and using the React DOM to take our app that we're using here. And this index.js is attached to document get element by ID root, which is included in our index.html right here. And because of that, we go index.html to index.js. Index.js is using app, which is attached to the root. That app is coming in from our app.js, and that's what actually gets us down to where we're working.
Okay. So all we have to do is just work in the app.js.
Yes.
Like
and we're going to learn how to make new components and files and all of that stuff. And we will be working in index.html, but for the most part, the general thought process, just go to app.js and start working there. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, everyone can unplug their ears now. We're back to your regularly scheduled programming. Shannon, go ahead.
So my console is all red and very angry.
I bet you it's just one character. Share your screen. Let's take a look. Oh, it is very red and very angry.
Yes.
That's okay. Let me see your code. You
Can you
may have just screen shared your browser.
Damn it.
Jen, your dog face is not scaring away your cats. It's not working. Okay. My code's on the left, yours is on the right. Okay, I think everything actually looks fine here. Go back to your browser and refresh the screen. Does that get rid of a lot of the red errors?
Yes, actually, now it's just sort of angry.
Would you look at that? So you had a bunch of errors in there and it you fixed them as you were coding out and catching up, but those old errors stay in there. So when you hit the refresh button, that kind of clears it out and says, all right, only give me that error message if it's still actually a problem.
Okay.
The only other issue that I see is you've got a car.mark, not a car.make on line 22, and that's why your Toyota, Honda, Fords are not showing up.
Damn it. Okay. Thank you.
No problem. And that one red error, we're gonna get to in 1 second. Goggin.
So just to get this clear also, we are using the key value pair right here.
Correct.
In the return, the LE, like the list module.
Yes.
So we don't have a, oh, actually we do, shit. Oh, I was thinking we don't have a variable. We do have a variable because from cars, it's just cars. So I got confused there.
Yes.
Right, perfect.
Tara, what's up?
My screen is just blank. So I don't know, it's saying compiled successfully, but it's just blank.
Share screen, let's take a look.
Okay.
We call that the minimalist error screen. And whenever my boss sends me that, I go, oh, I don't know what your problem is. It looks perfect to me. Okay, let's head to your console. And your console is hiding some errors on
Yeah.
us. So go ahead and pull that up and let's refresh the screen. And now it's going to give us the most recent errors, which are saying objects are not valid as a React child. So what that's trying to tell us is over here, we modified our cars array to use objects, right? Because we wanted to keep track of the make and the model. But it's getting down here to our cars. We're looping over it. And what do we want to show? We want this whole object to show. And it's like, I don't know how to show an object. Do you know how to show an object? What it wants you to do is put in .make or .model there after the car in the parentheses, in the curly braces, and that should fix your problem.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
No problem. Anyone else need help? Okay, so we've got our car
Wait, can
making.
I ask one more question?
Shoot.
Oh, never mind. It's
No,
okay,
go
never
ahead.
mind. No, I think you have the same warning. I just
Oh,
can't.
yes, I do have one warning left in my console that says each child in a list should contain a unique key prop. We're going to ignore that for now.
Okay.
Okay, so over here, I've got my Toyotas and my everything showing up. And this is kind of cool, right? Because this is the first time that we haven't had to copy and paste 4 list items. Well, not technically, because we've done it in vanilla JavaScript, but we're looping over everything. But hypothetically, this could get really involved, right? What if I don't want it to show like that? What if I want it to show like our spans down here, where that information just shows up? Wouldn't it be cool if we could just move all of that stuff into its own little component, its own section of code, and just pass that information in? Well, we kind of can. We've got our car shower down here, and I'm like, okay, I want to give the car shower access to the make and the model of the car. Well, let's think about that. This is a function. How do we tell a function to behave differently based off of its inputs? We put in parameters, right? Well, in React, parameters are kind of special. They get something called props. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in the word props here. Props are short for properties. Wait a second. Where have we had properties before? We've had properties before in our HTML elements. Our HTML element class name, look at what VS Code is showing me on my screen. Class name is a property. Properties are whenever we put something on that HTML element. All right. So does that mean I can take my car shower and put it inside my cars.map? So I'm going to save that, and I'm going to come over here and I get make model, make model, make model, make model, make model. Why? Well, because I have 4 cars here. So I get 4 pairs of makes and models. Okay. Well, I already told my function I'm going to send it some props, some properties. How do I do that? I'm going to go up here and I'm going to say my make is equal to, and I'm going to put in my curly braces. So JSX goes, hold up, JavaScript coming my way, give it the car.make. And also give it the model of car.model. Okay, so I save that. I come over here. Nothing has changed. I've taken my car shower and given it some properties here. What I have not done is told it how to use those props. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw in curly braces and say, go to the props and go get the car's make. Then go to the props and get the car's model. And look what I get over here, our make and model of all of our cars. Do not worry if your head is about to implode. We will do a review after this. I'll give everyone a minute just to catch up, and then we will review what we have so far. See if it will let me put this on another line without throwing a fit. There we go.
Why is the prop.make is out of the span?
Because I didn't want it to show up in bold.
Oh, but if we put it in there, would still work?
It would still work. It would just be in bold. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Perfect.
Before I do a review, does anyone need help up until this point? Will not be asked to turn this in. If you're along for the ride and just taking notes, that's totally fine.
I'm not sure, like when I just try to fresh minds, it just gave me an error.
What is your error?
Hmm,
You have a props is undefined.
Yep,
Make sure you add in the word props on the car shower between the parentheses.
thank you.
You know I've taught this way too many times when I know what the error message is before I see the error message. All right. Anyone need one more minute before we go into a review? All right. Let's dive in. Oh, Goggin, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna have a couple questions. I want to get this. So when you did the car shower, like return car shower, whatever,
Yeah.
the make equal. How does that? Is that a key we calling in?
This is a property on the car shower component that we are sending in a property, and properties have property names or keys and property values right here. This property value is actually coming from the car object dot make, and that make is a key on the car object. So we are basically taking Toyota and sending it into the make property. We then use that make property that gets sent through the props down to the props down here where we retrieve the make.
Oh, so okay, I get this. So we put the props there, and then we define the property. Property is gonna be the make.
because it's
And
the
then
main.
you call it
here.
back up there.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that was like,
Now I'm about to say something confusing, so if you're already lost, plug your ears again. We don't have to make this line up with this. We could actually call this manufacturer and use manufacturer down here, and it would still work exactly the same.
now you
Because
could.
this has to line up with this, but this has to line up with this.
So is manufactured just the variable?
It is the name of the prop, which is a variable right here. But I'm going to put that back because that's confusing and really poor code to do that. Okay. Anyone else have questions before we go on a review? Or Goggin, any others? Go for it.
Oh, so how does it know like manufacturer we looking for the specific thing? Like if like the way you put it, like
Because if you console log out your props here, you can actually see props is just an object that's including the information that we included up here. So if I wanted to, I could say something like num equals 2, and that would show up in the props.
oh.
So we're basically taking whatever is right here and sending it into the props down here.
Oh, okay, I get it now. That makes sense. So basically the parentheses is what we're getting out of the variable, like the keys and the values.
Yes.
But, okay.
And Palash, we will cover this, but you can use object destructuring here if you wanted to. Don't worry, we'll cover that. We're working our way up. We're only in day 1 of React. We got plenty more days to go here if this is all blowing your mind. All right, we ready for a review? Any other questions? Okay. We start at the top. We've got a function. But because this is capitalized, this function is actually a component. A component in React is just something that's going to show up some HTML. It's going to return some HTML. Don't worry, I just confirmed this is recording. You can go back 751 and review this as many times as you guys need. Okay, here we go. A component.
Sorry, do you
yeah.
have a like a cheat sheet for like you did with JavaScript for the syntax in this?
I will tomorrow.
Oh, thank you.
All right, so the only thing that I have for you right now is the React documentation, and that is going to line up with a lot of the stuff that we've already covered. So if you look over here on the right-hand side, you're going to see like adding styles. Well, we did that, right? We use class name and we use style objects. So you're going to see stuff like displaying data, and displaying data is going to be using that syntax that we've used to show the car stuff. Or we haven't gotten into some stuff like using hooks but rendering lists. We just went over this, right? Where they're using the .map and showing you that information. So the React documentation is better than most frameworks documentation, only because it sucked terribly for the first couple years that React was out. And then they updated this a month or 2 ago, which is why I'm a little off, because I'm not using pre-written code. I'm actually doing this all off the cuff. But all the concepts that we're covering here should be in the React documentation. But that doesn't answer your question of, well, do you have something visual? Because the JavaScript cheat sheet can kind of help break those concepts down. I will pull together a couple resources for you and get them over to you. But react.dev under their learn section in their quick start is a good place to get started. And then I'll gather a couple more resources tomorrow and share them with the class. Okay, We've got a function. This function is a component. It's a component because it's returning out some HTML. Whatever we have between our function and our return is just good old-fashioned JavaScript. So in that JavaScript, we can declare things like variables. Those variables can be arrays and objects and what we know and love about JavaScript, or hate for some of you. We can also declare things like functions. That function is called add2nums. It takes 2 parameters. Everything that we've seen so far, good old-fashioned JavaScript, we're great. Now we come down to this return. And the return is what's going to show up to the end user, right? There's our HTML. So we come in, we hit our div, and we're like, all right, this is a little funky. We got to use class name instead of class, but everything else is still the same. We still use periods in our CSS. Everything's good. Got an H1, welcome to React. I have an unordered list. I'm going to get bullet points showing up here. Hold up. I see a curly brace. I've never seen a curly brace in HTML before. What's going on there? This curly brace, like a template literal without the $, is saying not HTML anymore. There's going to be some JavaScript in here. In this JavaScript, I'm calling out cars. Cars is coming up and is referencing my cars up here. Okay, this cars, because of this curly brace, is referencing my cars up here. Okay, what do I want to do? I want to map over all of those cars. What is map? Map is just a for loop. So the first time this loop runs, it's going to take my first car, my Toyota model RAV4, and it's going to dump it into this variable called car. Okay, now what? Console log out the car. So we're seeing all the car information over here, and I'm like, all right, my loop is working. All 4 objects are printing out there. What would I like to show up? I would like to return out this car shower. And I'm like, well, what is car shower? That's not an H1, that's not a P tag, that's not a div. How does it know to do that? Well, what we're doing is saying go down to the car shower, right? Oh, can I make it all fit? Almost. Okay, let's try it there. Go down and use the car shower from here. Because this component is capitalized, you'll notice div, p, span, h1, all of those are lowercase. So when we put it in uppercase, the computer knows car shower is not some fancy element that HTML is styling for us. It is actually this component down here. This component is just a function, but the function is returning a div. So everything inside this return is going to show up where this car shower is. Well, where is this car shower showing up? It's showing up wherever this map was called. That means that this entire chunk of the dot map isn't going to show up in our HTML. What is going to show up, all of this div down here is going to get dropped in to the cars map up here. How can we prove that? Well, if I go back over and I inspect my code and I look at my make and model, what do I get? I get a bunch of divs with spans and our information in them. The browser is taking this entire div and dropping it here every time this map runs over a car.
That's because
Okay.
you have to return car shower.
Correct, because I'm
That's why I
returning car
stuck it in there.
shower, but I'm doing that return inside of a map, which means I'm going to get a car shower for each car in my cars. Yes. Okay, well, if that's the case, how does car shower know to show the make? I've got my car data up here. I've got my make and my Ford. And I know that this object has gotten dropped into my car right here because the map is pulling that information out from my car's array. So I have access to the make Ford up here, but I don't have access to that in my car shower down here. I need some way of getting the information from here and sending it down into my car shower. How do I do that? Well, I'm going to add 2 props to my car shower component called make and model. I'm then going to put in my curly braces, which are saying heads up, JavaScript time. And I'm going to take my car right here and get out the model, which is F-150, and the make, which is Ford. I then take the props that I'm sending here and I drop them into a parameter called props right here. Now my make and model, which are trickling down from my object up here, are accessible via this props. That means that when I say props, I'm linking to the props here. And when I say .make, I am linking to the make up here, which is going to the car, which is going to our map, which is going to our array up here, and linking the make Ford to the props.make that we're dropping in down here. Take a minute, because that is a ton to learn. Are we starting to see, maybe this React could help with our capstone? Maybe I could make a component that would not make me have to copy and paste my HTML a gazillion times. We haven't even gotten to interactivity yet. We haven't even scratched the surface of data and API calls showing up. But by melding our 2 worlds together, we almost get the ability to kind of simplify our code. Yes, it's more syntax for us to learn, but it's just syntax coming together.
Am I saying it right when the properties just gives you access to the properties of the array?
It gives you access to whatever properties get sent in when you call the component. And the properties that happen to be sent in, the values of those properties are coming from the objects in the arrays.
Okay.
So props don't just give you access to the values in the array, they give you access to whatever data gets sent into those props. And we happen to pull that data from the array. There are times that we don't send in, there are times that we use props for things other than values in the array. But in this situation, we're not. We're only using, so yes, you're not incorrect in saying that. All right, who wants to make a to-do list in the last 30 minutes of class, because I haven't already fried your brain with a gazillion concepts? All right. Let's see how far we can get in this. We will pick it up tomorrow. I'm not saying we're done with class. I'm saying we're going to see how far we get in the next 30 minutes, and then we will pick up with class tomorrow. All right.
Can I get the live share again?
Yeah, sure. Ariel, can you grab that? Thank you. Okay. All of this code is great, but it's going to get in our way. But I don't want to delete it, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on this file and I'm going to rename it as example. Let's call it car example. And I'm going to hit enter. I am then going to go up and right click on my SRC folder. I do not want to right click up at the to-do level. I don't want to be in the public folder. I am right clicking on the SRC and hitting new file inside of there. And inside there, I'm going to do my app.js. Thank you, Rain. Okay. Inside my app.js, we now cannot use the create React app that did all the work for us. We actually have to make a component from scratch. But wait, we've done that before. The component that we made from scratch is just a function. And that function just returns out some HTML. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to say const app is a function, and it's going to return a div. And inside that div, there's going to be an H1 that says to-do list app. And I save. And I come over here and it says compiled with problems. Export default imported as app was not found in app. What's happening here is React doesn't know that it has access to this app file. What we need to do is export the default item as app. This export is allowing us for index.js to import this file. If that doesn't make any sense to you, that is okay. Probably not tomorrow, but well, tomorrow we have class, Thursday is open hack. So on Monday, we will be diving into how can we pull components into their own files and import and export across multiple files. But for now, we're going to keep it simple. We're going to do everything in our app.js. We export our default app and we get access to our app here. And what we should have over in the browser is our H1 showing. I renamed my app.js file that we were working on to car example. I right-clicked on SRC. I made a new file. I called that file app.js. I put my const in. I named the component app. I had it come in with no props or parameters. I make it a function. That function is going to return something. What is it going to return? It's going to return a div with an H1 inside of it, and we should be good to go.
How do you make it go live again?
In the terminal, if you are backed out of you can hit Control-C to stop whatever is in your terminal by clicking down there and hitting Control-C, and then npm start and enter, and that will pull up your code.
Yeah, it's still not working for me.
Share screen. Do you have your export default app at the bottom of the file?
Yeah, well, the problem was honestly about like 10-15 minutes ago, for some reason the Wi-Fi at my house just stopped working, so I got kicked out of the room and everything, so everything just kind of went crazy.
Share screen, let's take a look.
Yeah, so the Control-C, the npm start. Can you see?
Yeah, do your npm. My guess is, aha, you were not listening. You made your app.js file. Come on. Outside of your SRC folder. So take your app.js. Oh, okay. I was going to say you could just drag and drop it into that SRC folder. And then now you should be back in business.
Cool. Thanks.
No problem. You can see it in your browser.
Yeah.
Cool. Anyone else need help? All right. So, oh, go ahead, Taylor.
Sorry,
What's up?
it took me a second to find the button.
Oh,
So
good.
I also was not having it pop up in my display either on my browser.
Share screen. Let's take a look.
Okay. Oh, hold on. It just started working. I thought I was looking at
Okay.
the wrong tab. All right, cool. Thank you.
No problem. Anyone else? Okay. So to-do list app. How hard could it be, right? Nice and easy. You got an input, got a button, make the list show up. No problem. It's not like I can squeeze at least an entire 3-hour class out of this or anything. All right, let's dive in. First thing that we need in a to-do list app is a way to type in a to-do list item, right? No big deal. We do our input. Our type is going to be text. And I'm going to save that. Should probably throw a label in there. So say maybe new to-do item. All right. Got my little input here. I can type something in, finish this app. But one other thing that I need is a button with a type of submit. And that is going to say add item. Okay. Now, I would like it so when this is submitted, something happens. In order to do that, we could add an on-click to this button. But after years and years of development, I have finally learned that it is much better to put all of this in a form element and attach an on submit to it here. Why? Because if you hit the enter button, ignore all of my errors here. If you hit the enter button right here, it will fire off the on submit. If we do it as an on click on the button, it will only work if we click on the button. But if we do it as a on submit of the form, when we click on the button or hit the enter button, it will add the item for us. That's just good user behavior. Okay, so we did an on submit here, and you notice kind of like class versus class name, my S is capitalized. In React, whenever we have an event, we are going to capitalize or camel case our properties. So I do an on submit here, and I want to say add item. Now, instead of having to do a script.js and add a new function for that and go through all of that work, I can use my curly braces here and just link it to add item. Well, these curly braces are saying, hold up, JavaScript's coming. So I need to tell it what add item is. So I come up between my app and my return, and I say const add item. And I say, I come back over here, I type in ABC, I hit add item, and my item clears and nothing happens. I'm like, I didn't tell you to clear. What do we know about our old friend JavaScript and form submissions? What do we need to do?
Console log.
Before even the console log, what's making this page clear?
Oh, yeah.
I hit add item, it disappears. The event default thingy, yes,
Yeah.
the refresh. We have not completely shaken our JavaScript. So we need our event prevent default. Now, if this is working, and this is how you can test, you can type something in and hit add item. And if the word test stays there, we're in good shape. Anyone need help or just another minute?
Mine is saying add item is not defined. Maybe.
Did you define add item up here?
Yes.
Did you make sure the casing of add item matches the casing of add item down here?
No, I did not. That's the word. Okay, then. Why now something else came out now? Hold on, let me see. Does it have to be the same thing? And no, you have it different. Can you have a look at it real quick?
Yep. Share screen.
Let me try to save this real quick. Oh, it worked. It worked. Yeah, save
Okay.
it.
Anyone else? Okay. So we've got our event prevent default in here. I'm like, all right, what's the goal here? I would like that item to show up as a bullet point thing. So I'm going to come over here. I've got my add item and I'm like, all right, how do we get the values of the inputs out here? Well, I'm going to throw a name on this, and the name that I'm throwing on it is task. And I'm going to come up here and I'm going to console log out the event target elements. And I'm going to spell event right. And now I come over here and I hit add item and I get this HTML forms control collection. All right, I'm on the right track. What element do I want? I want the task element. So I hit add item now and I get my input type task. I'm like, okay, one more layer deep there. The event, the form submission, the target that is on, that is the form. Go to the elements inside of the form. That's all of this. Go to the task, which is this input. And what do I want from this input? I would like the value. I save, I come over here, I hit add item, and I get what I typed in my console. Okay. So I'm going to say const item text equals my event target elements task value. Goggin, what's up?
Mine is not, it's showing the input type, but it's not showing the thing that I typed in.
Did you put your dot value at the very end?
Wait, no, hold on, let me see. Oh. Yeah, oh. Okay, I think I know what I did wrong here. Okay, yep, hold on. Yeah, I think I put it into the parentheses for some reason.
Okay, so I've got my item text here. And I know I want to keep track of multiple items. What data type does that say to you that we should use because we need to keep track of multiple items? Objects are good, but an array is even better because the array is a list of the information we want to keep track of compared to the objects, which would all have to have keys. So I could come up here and say const items equals an array. And what I would like to do is go to my items and add in, actually, we're going to do it a little differently. No, we can do it this way. And add in my item text. Okay. Let's just console log out my items and see if that's working. Save that. I come over here. I hit add item and I get test showing up in my array. All right, that's cool. Let me add a test 2. I hit add item, I get test, and I get test 2. Okay. That's great. It's in my JavaScript. I would like it to show up in my HTML. So I come over here and I say items.map. Give me each item. And for each item, I would like to return a list item. And in that list item, I'm going to put my item text. I save. Come over here. I'm going to refresh everything out. I'm going to type in ABC and hit add item. Huh? I'm going to type 1, 2, 3 and hit add item. I'm like, oh, what the heck, man? I have my items. I'm mapping over them. I put them in an array here. What is this kind of similar to? Think back to our vanilla JavaScript. What's happening here? Why is my HTML not updating? Kenny, you're on the right track. We didn't do anything with inner HTML, right? We updated our data, but we didn't tell our data, hey, go regenerate the HTML down here. In React, we are never going to use inner HTML. Never go live, never inner HTML. All right, how do we do it instead? Well, we're going to learn about this new type of variable called state. State is all of the data that live updates the HTML. So we can use variables in our JavaScript, in our React code, that is fine. But if we would like the data in that variable to automatically re-render, re-return, regenerate our HTML, we need to use state. Well, how do we use state? Well, first, we got to import it. We've got to tell it, hey, import use state from React. This is something that React has built under the hood. We can't just start using state. We got to import it. We got to tell it, hey, go to React, pull in this thing called use state. And the way that we use state, I'm going to take out my const items and I'm going to say, hey, we get two pieces of information from use state. We get the items and we get a way to set the items. And what is that equal to? That is equal to the use state that we pulled in from React. And what should the first value be, the default value? When this page first loads, what should our items in the state variable look like? It should start out as an empty array. So we've got something to push into. So we've got something to map over. Okay. Now, the problem is we are never allowed to set items equal to something. We are never allowed to work on the items directly. Instead, what we need to do is use this set items function. The way we do that is instead of pushing into our items, we are going to set our items to whatever is in the items array already, plus our new item text. Okay. But Max, you didn't update the inner HTML. Why are we doing all of this? This is dumb. ABC, add item, boom. It shows. I type 1, 2, 3, I hit add item, it shows. I didn't touch inner HTML. I didn't do any of that. Why is that working? Because we jump through the hoops to use state. Whenever we call set items, React is smart enough to say, wait a second, if you're setting items, items down here is using set items. So I am going to go back in and I'm going to automatically, whenever you call this set function, I am going to realize that none of this has changed and I won't touch that. I won't re-render it. I won't worry about those resources. But because you called set items up here, and because items is using state up here, it will automatically rerun this map and return out any of the new items that we set in right here. State is the most complicated and the most important React concept to learn. If you don't feel that you have it tonight, that is okay. State is not going anywhere. You should have an error message that's a warning. I don't really want to explain it tonight, but you can fix it by throwing this in here. And that will make it so when you refresh the page and type stuff in, the warning won't show up. This was very terrible timing because I just took the most important concept of all of React and taught it to you at 8:26 on a Tuesday night. Good job, Max. Way to nail the timing. Should I have saved that for tomorrow? Probably, but you got exposure to it now and you're like, all right, what else can React do? It's okay if you don't get state. I'm going to give you one more explanation, then I'm going to answer Jen's question, and then I'm going to let you all get out of here, and I will stick around if your code is not working and help you get caught up. And I will post a copy of this code into GitHub so that you have access to it. One more flow through state. We can't just use state. We've got to import it from React. Once we get it imported, we get two things from state. Whenever we use state, we always get two things back. We get items, which is what actually is holding the data. That's where the variable is in state that's holding whatever we set into it. And we get this function called set items because we're never allowed to edit the items directly. We're never allowed to set items equal to a new thing. We have to use this function called set items if we want state to work for us. We equal that to a use state, which we imported in from React. And inside the parameters there, we tell it what value we want the items to start out as. We start the items out as an empty array. In this empty array, we are able to map over the items that is coming from our state right here. Well, it turns out there's nothing in the array, so there's nothing for it to map over, so it calls it a day. But when our form on submit runs add item is plucking the value out of the item text, and we use set items. Set items is now going to overwrite whatever was in items with a copy of whatever is currently in the items plus our item text. Because we are using the set items function, set items is like, yo, I'm updating something here, go to the items, go back down to the items and return out a new list item for that new item that we just added. Shannon and Allie, did that help at all? Or are you still like, why in God's name are you frying my brain 2 minutes before the end of class?
Oh no, my brain's fried, but I fixed the error thing.
Good.
I was missing square brackets in use state.
Cannot iterate Cannot, no, it would be cannot use map of undefined or something like that.
Yeah, the whole screen was red. I pissed it off.
All right, I fried your brains. In return, I will let you out an entire minute early because I am so benevolent. Benevolent? That's not right. I can't even talk anymore. I fried my own brain.
Benevolent, go to bed.
Benevolent. Thank you. That's the word that I was going for. I'm not kidding. There are days where I will like send my boss a message at the end of the day and he's like, your English is not working anymore. And I'm like, I have written thousands of lines of JavaScript today. There will be words missing in my sentences.
Look at that. You got to stay 30.
GTFO. I will stick around if anyone has any questions.
So do
Oh,
when we
I'm here tomorrow.
yeah. I guess to end the server, we just close VS Code, or just like a way for to end it properly.
Yeah, ending it properly, you can click in the terminal and hit Control-C, and that will stop the server, and then you can close it. But if you close VS Code, it will kill the terminal, and that will kill the server too.
Is it ever going to like time out if we leave it open? Because I leave these open until the next class.
It shouldn't. It can, but it shouldn't. But we're going to duplicate everything and put it in a day 3 folder anyway. And then we want to make sure day 2 server is off when we start day 3's code. So it is a good idea to stop the server or close the window.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Max, I just want to ask a quick question.
Yeah.
I was checking the chicken before it burned when we were coming back from break. At
Sure.
any point, did you speak on React developer tools?
No, I did not.
The reason why is because when I was pulling up my console log, like I followed everything you put down, it did show for me. But when I was trying to inspect, it said to download React developer tools. I did something. wrong. Just yell at me, just get it over it. Whatever.
It isn't part of our curriculum, but that doesn't mean that it shouldn't be part of our curriculum.
Okay.
React developer tools are exactly what they sound like, right? Like we're used to the Chrome developer tools with inspect and console and network and all of that stuff. There are developer tools specifically for React that is a Chrome extension. So you can install the Chrome extension and then it gives you access to things like props and values and all right, you've talked me into it. Good job. I will cover the React developer tools at some point, probably not tomorrow. But if we get to the end of React and you're like, Max, we never got to the dev tools. I will find a way to work it into the curriculum at some point.
Thank you, because I so downloaded the extension.
I have it too. I have it too.
You did too?
I had it from before. I didn't even realize.
I will go over them at some point, probably next week. But it's not going to hold you up or stop you or make it any easier to do the next couple days of code. But I will go over that and show you how that debugging is working.
Awesome. Thanks.
Max, for some reason, I'm getting an error message.
Share your screen. Let's take a look. Your items text is not defined, but your item text is. Look at line 9. What is that telling it to do? In state, set items to the current copy of the item and the item text. But we're not using item text, we're using items text. Kill that S. Should be item text, not items text.
Thank you.
Allie, I need my microphone as my prop stand when you guys share your screen to steady myself. Anyone else need help before we get out tonight?
I will upload the time New York Times today somehow. I'm trying to finish it.
Cool. Happy birthday, Tara. Have a good one. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.